Stellar Blade is one of the anticipated titles that will come out this year. Not only because of its gorgeous main character Eve, but its overall visuals and gameplay caught the attention of many. I'm the Samurai and I will be providing my thoughts about Stellar Blade after playing the demo for hours, and we'll be answering how character progression goes, what the overall combat feels like, especially its difficulty, whether is it even worth playing or not, the pros and cons of the game, and more. So you will have an idea if this game is for you. I will be starting with demo specific first and also gameplay breakdowns before I go over the pros and cons of this game. The demo pretty much provided a decent amount of content where you can have a feel of the game, although the big chunk of the demo can be done around 45 minutes to an hour. When you start a new game, you will be thrown out to its opening cutscenes, and I really like this type of execution, and I remember the latest God of War has the same sequence as this. When you start the game, and the game will immediately throw you into a situation and start to immerse you as a player. Since this is a demo, not much of the story has been presented aside from Eve's faction trying to reclaim Earth from dangerous beings called the Nightibas. Man, right off the bat, the opening cutscenes had really strong impressions on me, not because of the level design or anything, but because of how gorgeous Eve is and Stellar Blade's phenomenal soundtrack. Right off the bat, you will notice the 100% inspired Nier presentation that they incorporated into this game. 300% they pulled a lot of inspiration from Nier, especially when we are talking about soundtracks. The opening sequence will provide players with tutorials, especially on how combat works and basic traversal. Going back to Eve, I am not gonna lie, I am impressed how her body physics works. Like really, it seems that they put a lot of effort and the majority of it was put into Eve's jiggle physics, making her feel absolutely organic for the lack of a better term. I will dive into this later on, and as the player progresses, you will eventually reach the area where you will be able to feel how exploration goes and even how enemies are being presented in each zone. You will have a good amount of taste and feel in how effectively traverse each zone. While exploring, you will find hidden treasures that are usually underwater or hidden in storerooms or debris. Usually contains upgrade materials, currencies, accessories, and more. You know the drill. General exploration involves platforming, solving puzzles to progress, or finding certain keys to unlock certain doors. So expect that you will be on a constant lookout for loot or always scanning the surroundings to progress to find treasures. Scanning is so convenient, especially when looking for loot or enemies. As for traversal, players will be navigating mostly city ruins, so traversals pretty much feels dynamic at times but also feels linear at the same time, but of course it is too early to tell. Expect a lot of verticality as you navigate with higher grounds to progress. Lots of ladders and the like, but the one that caught my attention is the ability to traverse submerged areas, and I really enjoyed being able to do this in such early parts of the game. As player explores each zone, they will encounter camps that you can treat as bonfires or site of graces from our beloved From subtitles. Camps can restore Eve's health and replenish her tumbler, which is your Estus flask in this game, as your primary health restoring item, or even unlock new skills from the camp's console, or even listen to its gorgeous music. Camps have a bigger version which is called supply camps. Supply camps have better modules where player can upgrade weapons, upgrade accessory slots, or even increase their tumbler charges for more heals. Supply camps also allow players to fast travel between zones, so this is going to be your primary way of navigating areas. I have a strong feeling that we'll be doing a lot of backtracking in the late game to unlock previously locked areas or visit previously unreachable areas, so keep this in mind. Touching on character progression and customization a little bit here, as Eve kills enemies, she gathers XP points to fill the SP gauge. Filling the SP gauge will net you points, and SP points can be used to unlock skills in the aforementioned skill tree. The majority of Eve's skills were no slouch, and I will dive more into this later on. It is not yet clear to me how stats can be increased aside from equipping stat increasing accessories or availing weapon upgrades. However, I remember getting body cores, which increases my total HP in the process. So moving on to Eve's model, and this is one of the key points of the game, which I will dive more into this later on. Eve's costumes are so eye candy that I can't stop looking at them, and I spent a lot of time in the menu. Although only a few costumes were available in the demo, you can see that each of them is uniquely and intricately designed. Moving on to combat, and you might be wondering why I am calling camps bonfires or like calling tumblers Estus flasks. Because in my honest opinion, Stellar Blade is shaping up to be a Souls-like game and derive a lot of elements from Sekiro. As a Soulsborne enthusiast, especially a fan of Sekiro, recognizing most of the familiar derived elements was easy for me. The overall combat is not as good as Sekiro, and I am 100% sure in this matter. However, Stellar Blade nailed the majority of the key elements that made Sekiro addicting. So to give you an idea, battles heavily relies on parrying and precise timing to counter specific attacks or even avoid them. For example, blue-colored enemy attacks can be countered by blinks, and when Eve blinks, she will teleport to the enemy blind side so players can strike in that position. Or grab attacks which are unblockable in most cases, so you will have to manually time in your perfect dodge cartwheels to counter this. Purple attacks on the other hand can be countered with a repulse move where Eve steps back and pushes the enemy so you can counter afterwards. It is expected that perfect parrying of every attack is the late game experience, since perfect parries heavily incentivize players like charging your skills much faster so you can use them more frequently in combat. When all of these mechanics combine in combat and you manage to execute or counter every attack that your enemy throws at you, it is simply rewarding, fun, and deeply satisfying. Players can also dish out different types of attack combinations like flashy ones. However, since this is almost a Souls-like game, especially when heavily revolves around Sekiro's combat, I tend to question how longer combos can be performed. Yes, these skills are flashy and pleasing to the eye but difficult to perform in most cases. Now I can be objective about this and say that I may lack the skill to execute the said long combos since I am new to the game. This is possibly true, and I will surely pay attention to this on release since I will have the proper time to learn more about this game when that time comes. Combat is out of the way, let's move forward. The demo will end by defeating the first major boss in the game, and quite frankly, I enjoyed my first fights with it, and even though I died 2 to 3 times, I expected to die a lot because I have recognized its genre. Especially when fighting bosses, as bosses in this game is one of the key features of Stellar Blade. And this is expected, especially if it's shaping to be a Souls-like title. After finishing the demo, a trailer will be presented which was exciting to see. Not only that, players will be able to face a late game boss where the most of Eve's skills are already unlocked. This will grant the players the optimal experience of combat. Being able to experience the intended combat gave me a strong impression, and to be completely honest, I was addicted to it and I cannot wait to see more. Moving on to my pros and cons, and let's start with the pros first. First is my obsession with its soundtrack. I cannot stress how great its soundtrack so far, and being able to set the mood perfectly in combat, exploration, and so on. I came to a point where I just wanted to spend time in one of the camps just listen to the phonograph. Its opening sequence would never been so good without the said OSTs, and in fact, my favorite is playing in the background all this time. I can't help but be nostalgic whenever I listen to its soundtrack since it reminds me of not only Nier but also FF13 tracks in general. The next pro that I can think of is Eve's overall design. I know, you caught me, I'm a man of culture and I will not deny it. Eve is a certified waifu and her character model is so visually pleasing, especially when wearing those beautifully crafted costumes. As mentioned previously, the physics, man, definitely shows. It feels real, it feels organic, it is totally immersive. The next thing that I like about this game is the actual combat, although there are downsides to it, which I will state in a minute. Ship Up did a great job making the overall combat satisfying. The majority of the hits feels impactful and satisfying, especially the majority of the skills. Executing counter attacks, parrying attacks, executing impactful skills, and watching combat cutscenes or finishers were satisfying as hell, and the combat is just too addicting in my opinion. I also appreciate the fact that players were given the training mode where they can polish their skills. As this is a skill demanding game, small things like training grounds play a huge part and tremendously helps a ton. So when the pros are out of the way, let's move on to cons, and by no means it's not a perfect game despite of my feedback so far. Overall combat feels really satisfying, however, I found some of the animations needed work. Like for example, whenever Eve pulled out her sword, or even when pulling some of the normal attack combinations, most of the attack animations are great as I have mentioned, however, there are still animations that feels restrictive and janky at times. If I am not mistaken, this is Shiv as first high-end title, so I kinda expect these things. I can't help but to think that Shape Up put like 80% of their total efforts into making Eves a fantastic model, but NPCs and enemies feels lacking at times. The same goes for overall graphic fidelity of the first area. Eve stands out for sure and no question about it. I am feeling an FF7 Rebirth vibe in here, where the model is so outstanding that I tend to be distracted in most cases by how the surrounding looks like, and for the most part, it feels that some of the parts are unpolished. Of course, these may change as I see more in the actual release. Now when it comes to my overall thoughts about the game, whether it is worth playing or not, my take is it truly depends on you. This game is truly not for everyone due to its Souls-like nature. Of course, one can argue that it's not totally Souls-like, and I agree with this. However, we can change the fact that this game will require patience and proper focus. So if you want to chill and just play the game to blow off steam, and then you try this game knowing that you will have a near-like experience, you might be surprised. I was not expecting a Souls-like experience since you can't just mindlessly hack and slash your way through. I was not aware that 70 to 80% of its combat is Sekiro inspired, so as early as now, consider this before buying the actual game. However, on the other side of the coin, if you love intense combat like Sekiro, or you love challenging bosses, or you're like me who loves spending dozens of hours just to get good or master my craft, you will never go wrong in this game. I am so stoked about Stellar Blade, and I can't wait to start my Near Sekiro experience, and I will surely cover this game. After all the things we've tackled, let me know in the comments what you think about this game. Will you play Stellar Blade? What's your opinion regarding its combat? Do you see it as a Souls-like game like me? Let's chat in the comments, and I will catch you on the next one.